Prologue. Samitsu grapples with the aftermath of political chaos surrounding Elaine's claim to the throne, while Sashal questions her about House Rieten's motives. They investigate a strange Ogier presence in the kitchens, discovering Ladar and Carlden, who express concern for Rand al'Thor's unstable condition. The chapter escalates when a serving woman announces Lord Dobrain's murder. Despite initial doubts, Samitsu attempts to heal Dobrain, who clings to life against the odds. As they uncover a suspicious document linked to Dobrain, Rosara enters, warning that Aes Sedai and Loghain are arriving in the city, heightening the tension. In Chapter 1, the Wheel of Time turns as Mat reflects on his responsibilities by the river in Rannon Hills. He encounters Noel and later Aegianin, who expresses concern over captured seafolk and the treatment of Damane. As they travel, Mat notices the busy city of Ebudar, now a stark reminder of recent violence. The chapter intensifies as Mat recalls a perilous night at the city gates, where Aegianin attempted to escape with 3 Aes Sedai. Amid chaos, alarms ring out, and Mat, Aegianin, and Noal flee into the storm, uncertain of their safety and the implications of their actions. In Chapter 2, Mat Cawthon and Aegianin arrive at Valen Luca's grand traveling show, which faces low attendance. Petra warns Mat about 20 Seanchan soldiers speaking with Luca, though they're not actively searching for them. Aegianin defies Mat's orders to stay away, leading to tension. Luca claims the soldiers only want horses, and Mat decides to uncover their intentions. Aegianin insists on obedience to her commands. Meanwhile, Mat checks on Juilin and Olver, who are playing a game. Aegianin orders Juilin to pack up as they prepare to leave once Marilyn returns, heightening the urgency in the camp. In Chapter 3, Mat struggles with his feelings about Tuon as he prepares to leave Ebudar. Aegianin warns him to respect her, but Mat insists on speaking with Tuon, leading to a tense discussion about promises and expectations. Tuon asserts her authority, revealing her true age. Tom interrupts with news of Tylan's murder, which Mat feels responsible for. Meanwhile, Mat learns from Jolene that their plan must change. They need to abandon Lugard for Ilion due to a looming danger. Jolene reveals someone is channeling nearby, possibly a Forsaken, intensifying Mat's anxiety as he decides to stick with the original plan. In Chapter 4, Furik Karede reflects on the recent disappearance of High Lady Tuon while at the Wandering Woman Inn. He learns from Almurat Mor, a seeker, about rumors of a girl with a Shiandar accent extorting merchants, suggesting Tuon's involvement. Mor reveals that 2 Damane vanished from the palace on the night of Tylan's murder, deepening the intrigue. The next day, Karede meets his servant Ajimbura and heads into the woods, where he finds Captain Musenga and 100 members of the Death Watch Guard ready for a mission. They prepare to search for Tuon, emphasizing the urgency of their task. In Chapter 5, Perrin wakes up angry and exhausted, plagued by Fael's 22-day kidnapping. He senses a threat from wolves, dubbed the Last Hunt, and remains determined to rescue her from the Shaido. Selanda reports that Masema has sent a rider back to Amadisha and that there are Alterans among Masema's followers, suggesting potential allies. Concerns grow over Masuri Sedai's visits to Masema. Perrin resolves to gather information, ensuring the camp's security. He encourages Balwer to share suggestions directly. As Perrin mounts his horse, he reflects on trust and the necessity of choosing allies wisely in uncertain times. In Chapter 6, Perrin rides through the forest, troubled by thoughts of Masema and Fael. He slows his horse, Stepper, as he senses Darkhound, tracks near their camp and instructs Aram to alert the others. Perrin meets Berelain, who gives him a secret document found in Masema's camp. The letter, bearing a seal from Sarath, confirms Masema's treachery involving the Seanchan. While discussing Masema, they mention Anura's secret meetings with him, causing concern. Perrin realizes he must navigate these complex intrigues and maintain vigilance, aware that danger lurks nearby, especially with Masema's growing influence. In Chapter 7, the group finds large dog tracks indicating Darkhound activity. Berelain, undeterred, chooses to continue their journey. Aes Sedai Masuri confirms a recent large pack of Darkhounds passed through, suggesting they won't return. Tension rises as Perrin senses Masema and his riders approaching. Despite the risks, Berelain decides to confront him. Masema reveals a town called Sohabor with full storehouses of grain, which raises Perrin's suspicions. He prioritizes rescuing his wife Fael over food supplies. As Masema and his followers gather, Perrin realizes the complexity of their situation, with more dangers approaching. In Chapter 8, Perrin pursues Elias and a maiden named Elienda, who inform him of a Shido camp housing over 10,000 fighters, while he has less than 2,000. Elias warns him about their numbers, and Arganda suggests negotiating for Fael's ransom, but Perrin refuses and insists on confronting the Shido directly. He orders Arm to locate Grady for assistance. Grady uses his abilities to create a gateway to the vicinity of the camp, where they approach stealthily. Once at the ridge, Perrin sees the vast Shido camp and learns from Marlene that there are likely up to 500 channeling Wise Ones present. Determined, Perrin resolves to find Fael despite the overwhelming odds. In Chapter 9, Faele navigates the Shido camp while doing laundry and witnesses tensions among the Wise Ones and the treatment of Gaishan. She learns of escaped Gaishan and is confronted by Nadrik, who insists she belongs to Savannah. Roland intervenes, suggesting an alliance. Galena, an Aes Sedai in Gaishan robes, threatens to expose Faele unless she steals something. Fael discovers the two women, Arella and Lucille, were captured during an escape attempt. Eravine pledges loyalty to Fael, promising to keep her secrets. Savannah reveals Fael's hidden knife, hinting at her plans and intentions for power. In Chapter 10, Elaine prepares to leave House Matherin, anxious about the dangers awaiting her in Kemlin. Her maid, Elsie, screams, mistaking something for a ghost, which Elaine reassures her about. After meeting Avienda, Elaine receives word that her escort is ready, including a mix of trained guards and local men. Despite her worries about their capabilities, Elaine emphasizes the importance of rallying support for her claim to the throne. As they prepare to leave, Elaine senses Rand is in danger, but ultimately decides to prioritize her duty to Andor over rushing to him, returning to Kemlin instead. In Chapter 11, Elaine arrives at the palace and senses an absence of women channeling Saidar. She is acutely aware of the political threats to her claim to the throne and is supported by her guards. Birgitte and Avienda express concern for Elaine's discomfort, while Birgitte mentions that some members of the kin have fainted, suggesting a deeper issue. Elaine insists on focusing on her political challenges rather than panicking. The conversation shifts to Captain Meller, who has led a risky rescue without orders, prompting Elaine to reprimand him for endangering her position and demanding he keep the rescued men away from the walls. In Chapter 12, Elaine waits for guards to clear her apartment before entering. Inside, she finds Asanda and two tirewomen preparing for her bath. As she and Avienda relax, Birgitte informs them of new Aes Sedai arrivals. Outside, chaos erupts as Zeta, the wave mistress of Clan Catalar, demands an urgent meeting about leadership after Nesta Din Reis's death. Elaine learns Zeta intends to take Aes Sedai for teaching. After negotiations, Elaine secures 4 windfinders for Camlin in exchange for a square mile of land on the River Aranin, ensuring the city remains supplied amid turmoil. In Chapter 13, Elaine prepares for a meeting with Dylan and the High Seats, feeling overwhelmed by her responsibilities and Arimilla's influence. Young nobles from houses Mantir, Haven, Gilliard, and Northen arrive, pledging their support to Elaine. Dylan shares concerns about the kinswoman's ability to perform as Aes Sedai, noting Mistress Corley's struggles with channeling. Birgitte and Avienda express doubts about the competence of the young High Seats, but Dylan emphasizes that circumstances force them to grow up quickly. Elaine worries about possible repercussions from Gilliard if Branlet is accused of being kidnapped and assigns Dylan to manage any fallout. In Chapter 14, Elaine meets with her advisors to address palace security concerns related to Master Harnder, suspected of spying. Surveillance is ordered, and reports of arson and mercenary loans raise loyalty issues. Tsigan Sokarin reveals that Wise One Monael wishes to see Elaine. During the visit, Elaine learns she is pregnant with twins, which excites her but also raises concerns about her ability to channel. The mood shifts when Casil informs Elaine of a missing Seafolk apprentice and Marilil Sedai's suspicious departure with a cloaked woman, prompting Elaine to organize a search. She is focused on maintaining order amidst rising tensions. In Chapter 15, Elenia Saran navigates a camp burdened by Arimilla's manipulation. She meets Nayan Aran, who agrees to renounce support for Marna to ensure her safety. However, her mood darkens when confronted by Nassan, a mad High Seat, and Aramilla insists Elenia and Nayan share a bed, which Elenia reluctantly accepts. Meanwhile, Hanlon, a captain of the guards, evades an assailant and contemplates the dangers surrounding him, including the murky politics of Kemlin. He meets Shane, who requests he arrange the escape of Seanchan women and disrupt supply routes, hinting at darker intentions. In Chapter 16, Egwene observes the approaching river ships at Tar Valon, feeling homesick for the White Tower while recognizing the threat they pose. Gareth Bryne urges her to prepare for an assault, but Egwene prioritizes protecting the tower from internal conflict, fearing it will weaken their stance against the Ashaman. As they ride, Delauna, a Grey Sister, requests a private audience, hinting at political maneuvering. During their conversation, Delauna warns Egwene of the Ajah's scrutiny regarding her potential bonding with Gareth and suggests that recent discussions in the hall about negotiating with Elaida could pose a risk to her authority. In Chapter 17, Delana's exit raises alarms among the Aes Sedai, leading Egwene to consider her possible intentions to provoke discord and sabotage negotiations with Elaida. As they near the camp, Egwene emphasizes the need for secrecy about their plans. Meanwhile, issues with spoiled supplies create anxiety about Sidar's stability. Egwene feels the weight of her leadership amid rising tensions. The chapter highlights debates over the production of Cuendillar, with conflicting opinions from various Aes Sedai. Despite dissent, Egwene resolves to continue the project, recognizing its necessity for funding and determined to uphold her authority amid growing challenges. In Chapter 18, Egwene faces the challenges of her position as Emerlin, feeling the weight of her responsibilities and physical pain. In her tent, she meets Siuan and Halima discussing rumors of sitters negotiating with Elaida, particularly regarding younger sitters raised in different Ajahs. Siuan emphasizes the need to investigate these developments. Egwene also reads concerning reports of rising crime in Tar Valon and reflects on the precarious state of the world, including the Seanchan threat and unrest in Aradomin. The chapter concludes with news that Akaran and others have returned, signaling a forthcoming report to the Hall. In Chapter 19, Egwene arrives at the Hall, where tensions rise over Elaida's actions. A meeting begins with discussions about Elaida's negotiations and reports of a massive hole in Shadar Logoth, indicating the Forsaken's involvement. Moria proposes an alliance with the Black Tower to strengthen their circles, but this sparks outrage among the Aes Sedai. After a tense exchange, several sitters stand in support of Moria's proposal, despite opposition. Egwene pushes for a greater consensus on forming an agreement with the Black Tower, emphasizing the need for careful planning and suggestions for their approach. In Chapter 20, Egwene attends a hall meeting about sending sisters to the Black Tower, but her input is disregarded, leading her to leave without resolution. In Tel'aran'rhiod, she learns from Aviendha that Elaine is pregnant with twins, and Aviendha shares her doubts about alliances with the Ashaman. Despite her concerns, Egwene realizes they must address the situation at the Black Tower. She experiences disturbing dreams, including visions of Mat in danger and a Seanchan woman offering assistance. The chapter ends with Nisao shocking Egwene by revealing the deaths of Anaya and her warder, raising urgent questions about their circumstances. In Chapter 21, Alviarin feels trapped beneath Missana's influence while exploring the tower library. Her suspicions grow upon encountering the Brown sisters, Zemai and Aiden. She finds Elaida in a meeting with several sitters where Elaida asserts her authority and demands negotiations with the rebels, intensifying Alviarin's fear and humiliation. After a confrontation, Alviarin flees, realizing Elaida suspects her of being Black Aja. Meanwhile, she is marked by the Great Lord, who commands her to find those threatening his creatures. Alviarin grapples with her precarious situation, contemplating a way to turn the threat against Elaida to her advantage. In Chapter 22, Pavara waits for Pedra and accepted, and reflects on her qualities. When Tarna visits, Pavara notes her discomfort and questions her intentions. Tarna expresses unease about the changes since leaving the tower and reveals her encounter with Ashaman recruiting men to follow the Dragon Reborn. She argues that Red Sisters must take Ashaman as warders, a radical proposal Pavara finds shocking. They discuss the urgency of this action, with Tarna dismissing Pavara's concerns about the consequences of bonding them. Pavara then reveals critical information from an agent, leading Tarna to insist that her proposal is now even more urgent. In Chapter 23, Katswan reflects on the strategic implications of staying in Tear and learns from Varen that the Sea Folk have arrived and High Lord Astoral is allied with Darlin. Min interrupts to inform her that Rand wants to see her. Katswani observes her sister's warder's training and notes Nynaeve's unusual jewelry, which raises her concerns. Maurice expresses worry about Jahar's potential strength in the power. When K'Tuan meets Rand, he discusses the Seanchan's military strategies. Suddenly, Elza and other sisters enter, revealing their warders are approaching from Carrion, indicating that events are accelerating. In Chapter 24, a fierce storm sets a tense atmosphere as Rand struggles with his feelings for Min, Elaine, and Avienda, while Luz Theron's voice doubts his ability to protect them. Min confronts Rand about his concerns, especially regarding Loghain's rising influence. Rand learns that Davram Basheri and Loghain have arrived, bringing Aes Sedai, which disturbs him. Bashir reveals that 2 men ransacked his tent, likely targeting the seals on the Dark One's prison. As the storm intensifies, Rand decides to send Bashir, Loghain, and Loyal to negotiate a truce with the Seanchan, realizing he cannot fight multiple enemies simultaneously. In Chapter 25, Perrin anxiously prepares for a journey to Sohabor to rescue Fail, who is held captive in Malden. He feels uncomfortable in formal attire meant to portray him as a lord. News from Jondon reveals that the fleeing townspeople were mostly the old and weak, and capturing Shadow prisoners proves difficult. Arganda arrives with funds from the Queen but appears troubled. As Perrin and his group set out, they're cautious due to Masema's followers nearby. Balver introduces companions who seem to have ulterior motives. Tension rises as Perrin balances leadership responsibilities and personal urgency. In Chapter 26, Perrin, accompanied by Berylin and Galen, arrives at the fortified town of Sohabor, where they face initial suspicion from the townsfolk. Upon entering, they seek grain supplies at the Golden Barge Inn and confront the fearful merchant guild led by Mistress Arnon. As negotiations unfold, Perrin insists on inspecting the grain warehouses, revealing infested sacks filled with weevils. Tension escalates when Karayan claims to have seen a man walk through a wall, suggesting the dead are haunting the town. Seonid confirms reports of spirits, prompting Perrin to decide that the town must face its troubles alone. In Chapter 27, Perrin oversees grain winnowing in Sohabor, where tensions are high. Berylin confronts him about his limitations in saving the townsfolk and questions Lord Cowlin's absence. Perrin learns from Lation that Master Balver's friend will return soon. Upon returning to camp, he discovers the maidens have captured 5 Shido, whom he interrogates brutally to find Fail. Despite his harsh actions, the Shido remain defiant. After his interrogation, Perrin meets Elias and discusses his fears and emotions related to combat and Fail's captivity. Later, Balver introduces Talonvor, who reveals that 15,000 Seanchan are hunting the Shido and may help rescue Fail. In Chapter 28, Matt and Valen Lucas' show leaves Ibudar, heading towards Lugard amid heavy rain and concerns about Seanchan forces. Matt warns the Aes Sedai and Soldam to remain discreet, but they ignore him. Trusting Tom and Julin, Matt learns about an alliance involving High Lady Suroth, raising tensions. Matt navigates his complex feelings for Tuon while dealing with escalating risks. At a ferry crossing, Matt spots Tuon cloaked and hidden, realizing he cannot escape their situation. After days of contemplation, he ultimately agrees to Tuon's demand, and she smiles at his decision, halting the chaotic thoughts in his mind. In Chapter 29, Matt worries about his meeting with Tuon while concealing his scar. Aegeanin reassures him that Tuon will keep her word. In Jurador, Matt buys silk for Tuon, but is soon alerted by Julin that Aegeanin has been attacked by Rena. Matt rushes to her side, where Damon reveals the attack. They realize they must pursue Rena quickly. Upon reaching Luca's wagon, Matt finds Tuon inside, who insists that Aegeanin deserved her fate. Luca excitedly shows Matt a warrant for protection from Tuon, leaving Matt feeling frustrated and bemused by the unfolding events. In Chapter 30, Egwene learns of Kyron Stang's murder, likely by a male channeler, prompting her to instruct Nisao to investigate discreetly. Facing skepticism about her leadership, she proposes uniting the Aes Sedai and kin. Tensions rise as raider activity looms and political maneuvering intensifies among the sisters. Egwene firmly rejects any suggestions resembling compulsion, asserting her authority as Amerlin. After contemplating her role, she decides to ride out secretly. Disguised, she encounters a group of men dragging a rowboat. Upon attempting to use her powers on the harbor chain, she is struck, falls into the water, and loses consciousness, realizing she has been betrayed. Epilogue. Rand watches rain fall from a gray sky in Tyr, reflecting on the approaching spring while feeling pain from his wounds and the herons on his palms. He hears the door open and greets Bashir, who wears a fine coat and carries the Marshal General's baton. Bashir reports that the Seanchan are willing to negotiate, although they are eccentric. They request a personal meeting with Rand, specifically with someone referred to as the Daughter of the Nine Moons, rather than Lady Suroth. Thunder rumbles as the chapter ends, foreshadowing the tension ahead.